We do healing for us, but other people benefit from it. Yet, when we are operating as husband and wife and we're supposed to be becoming one, I can't get into that in the core of you or of your heart because it's so tightly closed off.
Most men can't operate from the outside, allowing their partner to see what they used to be from fear of losing the relationship or having it thrown in your face at some point. Or later on, you may show a certain behavior and that kind of mimics your past. So you don't want to become vulnerable to that. A lot of times I was afraid to really let her in. I didn't want to be wrong. I did everything in my power not to be.
Hey, loves. Welcome back to Where's the Love podcast. I'm your host, Corisa, and as promised, today we have a very special guest. Today I am interviewing my husband on a much needed and profound conversation. So before we dive into today's conversation, I just want to ask you all, our community is small but growing. If you have not already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's the best thing you can do to help us to continue to grow this community and the podcast. I thank you and appreciate you so much in advance. So today's conversation is important. We talk a lot about how women experience love, but we don't always stop to ask how men experience it, especially with all the expectations, pressure, and stigma they carry. So today we're talking about men and the stigmas they face around love. Before we dive in deep into today's conversation, sir, for the people who you are.
So since I didn't get an introduction, I'll give my own introduction. And I do have notes because I wanted to make sure all my answers made sense. How are you? Yeah, I'm a dedicated father, force veteran, and a husband of the woman who helped me to live what I speak, pray when I sway, and become a model pleasing to a wife. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's him in a nutshell. By the way, his name is Ajire.
Makes sense to tell people who I am because they're going to want to know after that.
I am excited because today my husband is going to speak to you all about the stigmas men face. And this isn't just a conversation researched or fact based. This is true lived experience. So I am so excited for you all to hear his story, his experience, his wisdom, and everything that I try to bring you on this podcast to promote love, life, connection, and healing in a profound and truthful way. Today, you'll hear it from him. So, how would you describe your relationship with love right now?
I think that in order to actually have a relationship with love, you need to understand what love is. My relationship with it
Babe.
continues to grow. It's a daily activity. It's a daily purposeful driven mindset. And there will be pitfalls off and on. But if your focus is, you know what did I do to get here? What did it take to get here? How much did I had to go through to get here? And then when you finally reach that place, strengthen your relationship with God about it because you can't do it on your own. It's just not going to happen. So personally, my relationship has good days and bad days, but the overall goal is to be a representation of what God says love is. And that's what I try to kind of mirror.
And that's an excellent thing to mirror because, as I often talk about on this podcast, that the foundation is God, of course. And after that is self love because we can't show love to others if we don't first understand God's love and we're not giving it to ourselves because the Bible tells us to love God above all else and then to love our neighbors as ourselves. So therefore, we have to know how to love him and ourselves before we can give it to everyone else around us. So growing up, what did you learn directly or indirectly about how men are supposed to love and express emotion?
So growing up in my time, young boys striving to be men were taught to, was more like if you had a um, girlfriend that is, it was always best to keep it secret because what we were exposed to was a lot of promiscuity. And growing up like that, you think that that's the appropriate way to be. Of course, it isn't. And as we grow, we learn. Personally, I never knew what any form of love really meant because of that kind of exposure. Every relationship that was modeled before me always left me to determine based on what I saw and how women were treated. So in my mind, that's what you're supposed to do. My parents had what I thought was a loving relationship, but unknowing to me, there was no stability in that. We were also taught to control our women because of lack of skills to properly communicate. And it was easier to settle in comfort, and sometimes verbal abuse meant that we could control our relationship because of the lack of the communication skill set. That was a way that most men did it. And it still happens pretty much prevalent today because men have such a small skill set in communicating. Um, being in control meant that you can actually hide the depths of our inner soul to remain unseen and non-transparent. Therefore, we didn't want to be vulnerable. Quite frankly, we didn't know how to be vulnerable because everything was always image, 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 and not really getting to the root cause of things, meaning that heart issue. And if you don't know how to open your heart to God, to your girl, your wife, to anyone, that's always going to be a whole bunch of things that are really critical and to having a healthy relationship that are missing.
Wow, that's really profound and interesting. You hit
I'm
on
not finished.
Okay.
Like I told you guys, I wrote some notes down because I wanted to, when she came, my wife came to me with this. I like these are really good questions, some really necessary questions that hopefully can help someone else. We've been through a lot, but we're still hanging in there, and we're trying to become that model of look, no matter what happens, you got God, you got each other, He'll have you. Figure it out, you know. One thing is, in addition, I wanted to say that my dad was always working, and my mom was kind of the disciplinary in those days.
Mhm.
And it was an unhealthy culture, and there was an unspoken knowledge of children should be seen and not heard. We don't raise our kids like that. We explain the world to them, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that helps to kind of round that character a little more to be prepared for the things that are out here because the devil's busy and anybody he can get his hands on right now, he's going to run with them. And that's for lack of knowledge for parents and not knowing what to do with that knowledge, even if you have it when it comes to your children. Be open with them, talk to them. And you want them comfortable enough to talk to you about whatever that's necessary. There were no, let's talk about the birds and the bees. There were no sex talk. It was none of that. You just kind of had to figure it out. Let alone let's talk about how to treat women or raise a family. That was not there either. So let's just say I didn't have a head start on life, but life definitely had a head start on me.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think for so many men, that's true even today. I know I listened not too long ago to we watch The View a lot, and Steve Galloway was on The View, but he was also on several other podcasts, and I watched him more in depth on Oprah, and he basically was saying the same thing that the fathers in that generation really didn't take hold of showing the sons what manhood actually involved or looked like or what was necessary to be a man that you could raise a family, a man that was actually a protector, a provider, all of the things that we know men to be. Um, but more importantly, how to evolve and show emotion, how to be vulnerable, just like you said, how to be able to survive or operate in a relationship where you actually have to show emotion, where you have to communicate, where you have to be vulnerable with the other person that you're in relationship with. And I think for so many men today, it's just that hardcore toughness is what is seen to be necessary in order to survive the world. But when you're in relationship, that's not what's needed. And so many women, we get the short end of the stick because we have men who've been taught all their lives, be the protector, be the provider, be hard, don't show emotions, don't cry, don't do this, don't do that. But yet, when we are operating as husband and wife and we're supposed to be becoming one, I can't get into that in the core of you or of your heart because it's so tightly closed off with a hard shell of everything that the world told you that you ought not to be. And so I think for so many men, this conversation is so desperately needed because as Scott Galloway is trying to do the work, I think other men that he may not be able to reach need to hear more voices like yours and men who actually lived a life that may be more closely related to them, but can see that there is a way out. Change is
Yes.
definitely possible for you no matter where you came from or grew up. So just to go back into some of the things you said, and especially hit on that vulnerability note, how did that actually affect you emotionally growing up? And especially now, being the grown man that you are with children and a wife and, a family, still trying to be a protector and provider, but yet now you have to be in a space where you show up emotionally. How did that actually affect you?
So one thing that I've recognized is when you're talking to your daughter, your wife, or anyone for that matter, the more vulnerable you are with whomever, the more human you seem to them.
Uh,
They can relate, but you can't be on this high pedestal speaking about what's written as opposed to what you lived, and just keep it real sometimes. You just got to tell them, like I said before, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And knowing that, okay, if they're going through something that I've been through that, yeah, yes, me. I'm not sitting on a high horse. It took me a while to get to where I am, but I've been through enough that whatever most people are going through, I've probably been through it. And everybody don't always make it out. Some people get stuck in the through stage, but you got to keep pushing, and you got to have a foundation of a really, really good foundation and relationship with God in order to get through a lot of these things, because you can't do it on your own. You also need a community, meaning men don't talk to other men. Men hold stuff in. If I remember correctly, some of the questions that you touched on, and we haven't expressed it yet, but a lot of that's going to speak about that as we go through these questions. I didn't want to give up too much because some of the stuff I wrote down, and she trying to go ahead of the questions, but we're going to stay on board. But can we go with question number two, love?
Sure. So, do you feel like men are more valued for what they provide than for who they are? And how does that affect how you experience love?
Absolutely. Men are judged for what they can provide. And the unfortunate part is, systemically, it didn't even matter the source of the provision. So that has several branches on it. You can go to the streets, you can get into the drug game, you can see people stealing, people doing whatever they can to make money and just to feed their family or pay bills. That means that what kind of morals were you taught? And after a while, it's like it didn't matter, because if we can't pay the bills and take care of your family, that's a really hurtful space to be in as a man,
Mm,
because this is all we knew. Men don't cry, men work hard, men take care of your family by any means necessary. A lot of these shortfalls kind of stem from slavery, and how black men never had opportunities that so many white men had. And, we've had a rough go at it. That's where the fight comes in us. All the fight that comes with us, a lot of it comes from that, the frustration, the being held back, the watching somebody else get with it, and you're more qualified than that person, but you can't get it. So a lot of that is a lot of pent up anger, frustration. And if you don't deal with it properly, it's going to come out the wrong way. Also, sometimes we can feel like we had to fight mentally and sometimes physically to show the caliber of man that we wanted to be. And in doing that, you wind up in the system. So now it's a whole different set of circumstances that you have to deal with. But you only started trying to take care of your family. Now you're trying to take care of your family. Now you got to go to court for these charges that you got. Now you may be a felon. How bad it have gotten. And the system kind of takes over because there were no opportunities there. There were no programs for us. So you just kind of had to figure it out.
yeah, for sure. Um, so how did that impact your confidence in relationships?
Well, for me, I've always I have five sisters, two brothers. So we had a pretty big family. And I've always kind of been the one that always got what they wanted, really spoiled, really kind of could do no wrong, so to speak. But as I got older, I think I used it more for a manipulation tool than something was really meaningful. What I mean by that is, if I could provide this, this, and this for this person, well, they're going to love me for real. So I've always had a mindset of being a great provider and didn't even know I was being a provider, because that wasn't my goal. My goal was to get what I could get based off of what I'm giving you. That was a quid pro quo back in the day. I mean, not proud of it, but it is what it is. But what made me the man I am today, I become more mature as I got older, and I saw the benefit of not having to worry about paying bills. Your kids not having to worry about where their meals coming from. Kids not having to worry about a roof being over their head, or lights being on, and experience nothing that I had to go through. I had to go through all of that. When I became a man, I'm like, my kids not going through that. So
Mhm.
I will work 10 jobs. I'll do what I have to do. And then out of the streets, I made things happen. Thankfully, I was one of the ones that made it through. And because of that, I want to kind of pay it forward to those of you that just don't know how to get out of whatever you may be in. There is a way out.
Absolutely. Most of it actually is just what you said, believing that you give in order to get out of a selfish manner because you want to get what you want to get from whomever else. And I think that so many of them nowadays have that mindset going into, and so yeah, it's definitely transactional. And I actually did another episode about that and I spoke about the value exchange in relationship. And though, you do have that kind of give and take in relationship, which can be seen as a transaction. But when it's coming from a place that, just like you said, it was basically, a selfish place where I'm gonna give you what I want to give you because I want something in return from you, which is whatever it may have been. And I think that so many young boys don't understand that that's not actually what makes relationships last. That's not real love, and that's definitely not what a true provider is, So I think our society definitely needs to do better, and for young Black boys or minority boys, especially because they don't have the opportunities, and many of them in this generation, and so we need to do better at making opportunity for them to actually find a positive outlet in becoming a true provider. Moving on into the next section, I want to touch on when men feel overwhelmed, hurting, or lonely, who are they really talking to, if anyone? And you just kind of mentioned that, but who are they talking to, if anyone, not just carrying it?
So most men would rather hold in their hurt and never man up to being overwhelmed. It was a sign of weakness if a man cried or acted like, the load was too much to carry. I've been fortunate for God to use what I thought was a weakness to find my strength, and that's women. Let me expand on that. So I put so much focus on impressing people, whining and dining, and it became a way for me to hide the hurt and have to acknowledge I was never taught how to treat a woman properly or eat to court a woman. I didn't know any of that stuff. That was my definition of how to treat a woman and get what I wanted. And then so I was pretty good at it. And I wasn't hard on the eyes. It was easy. I had to kind of manipulate my way around life, through life, actually to even do life. It probably took years and years and years. All of this stuff just building up, building up, building up. And sometimes it's almost like a cancer. Your whole mood changes and you don't even know why because there are so many things that were never addressed. And then you try to figure out why you're going from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, not knowing that what you were never taught about, how to deal with a relationship because everything ain't pretty. Everything ain't gonna be white picket fence. Ain't every day ain't gonna be sunshine. And we just didn't deal with issues well at all. Conflict was another issue. It is a way to do healthy conflict. You don't have to yell, scream, and disrespect each other. Kids these days, they use language, and I'm sitting there like, man, if I even thought about saying something crazy like that out of my mouth, like not even caring about what that really says about you as a person.
Mhm.
And that just goes back to a lot of this falls on your parenting. You raise your child right, and they know right from wrong. You raise them properly, but then they get hooked up in this lifestyle. At least they got a solid foundation to fall back on when they fall, because they're going to fall. Question is, how hard are they going to fall? Is it going to be their change, or is it going to be God having to sit them down and change them themselves? And that's not going to be something that they're going to be okay with. That's going to hurt a lot. I've been on both sides of that coin. So that's kind of how that worked out for me.
I know as this part of having to deal with things alone, definitely to be true for us because I think it was maybe when we were separated or something and we had like a deep conversation. It was just us having like a real heart to heart about everything that happened. And I don't know how you said it, but the gist of it was basically, you you carry so much and you feel like you have to carry it alone or you have been carrying it alone, being a single father, dealing with multiple women and all of these things. And I feel like for so many men, they do carry so many of their issues alone out of the fact of not wanting to be shamed about it, not wanting to actually be accountable either. Now, when you come to a place and you are just like desperate for change, right? Like I think it really had to get to that place for you where you were just like desperate for change and you just wanted some relief because when you carry loads like that for so long, people really don't understand how much damage it does to your body internally. Like your health is depleting day by day as you are carrying that stress. Your cortisol levels are skyrocketing crazy and everything is just out of whack. And I don't think men really take heed to that. Statistics show that men who are in relationships or married men actually live longer than their single counterparts. And I believe that most of that is because you have a true partner who you are able to lay some of that down with, right? And not be judged or not, or shouldn't be judged or feel judged or shamed or condemned or any of that. Like if you have a solid woman who is emotionally strong enough herself to hold you and carry that load with you and just let you know, like, this isn't something that you should or have to carry alone, right? Because we all do life incorrectly at times. Like we aren't born on the path of righteousness. That's a journey we have to get to learn how to do it right. But I think for most men, young men today, and even men in general, they didn't have that foundation. And even still, they don't have it. I mean, divorce rates are up, which means that men are getting out of marriages more than they're getting in marriages, which means they don't have that solid partnership. Young men aren't in true relationships, and most young girls don't even have the emotional regulation or emotional intelligence to help carry them through that. So I just think it's a lose-lose situation where, especially here in the US, our family dynamic is dying off at such a rapid pace. And people don't understand what that really means for our future generations or in our country as a future. If we really want to get this love thing right, we got to get it right first with God, with ourselves, and then in relationship. That's the bedrock. We know it to be true because we've been in this journey. We've been in this fight. Like it's a fight, but people got to be willing to fight for it. Yeah. So I think that, y'all young men out here that might be listening and come up on it. Yeah, he was a street man, but I had to get him right. Okay. I had to get him right. What makes vulnerability in love feel so risky for men?
All caps, fear. Okay.
Yeah.
The feeling of being looked at from the inside out. You can put a facade on all day long, but when you're vulnerable, they're looking at the inner you, the nights when you want to cry at night, the nights when you get afraid. But men don't do that. Most men can't operate from the outside, allowing their partner to see what they used to be from fear of losing the relationship or having it thrown in your face at some point. Or later on, you may show a certain behavior and that kind of mimics your past. So you don't want to become vulnerable to that either. It's just a twofold answer. Men can be vulnerable if they knew that all of those things that would kind of deter you from speaking about it weren't there. And that stigma is put there from how society has grown as well. Women look at men a certain way. All men are dogs. Ain't no good men out here. What are you allowing men are you allowing in your space? Keep your standards high. No matter if that man is disrespectful, I don't care how good he look. I don't care what creed he come from. I don't care how much money he make. If you know in your heart of heart that his heart ain't in the right place,
Mm.
or if you know that, oh, he only cussed me out one time, oh, he only hit me that one time, that's not a good look, man.
Yeah.
You got to stop things in its tracks because men struggle with communicating. He beefing about something that you have no clue what's going on because I wasn't mature enough to communicate that to you. And I'm in just a horrible mood. And now I'm taking this out on you. And you're like, I really didn't say much to you. And now both of you are kind of throwing your hands up like, you ain't going to put up with it. And I don't feel like dealing with it either because I don't want nobody, just let me go through what I'm going through. But you fail to realize in a relationship, there is nothing that you should have to go through by yourself. I don't care what it is. It took a long time for me to be transparent and vulnerable with my wife. Man, I've always been really, really independent. I've always been a business owner. I've always had it all. And I've never had to rely on nobody for anything. I've been married several times. And I'm like, even then, wasn't mature in Christ and wasn't mature in a marriage, wasn't mature in a relationship. And like none of that there. It took quite a while for me to really sit down and just give myself over to God. And I'm like, look, man, I'm tired of screwing this up. I think when being able to see through your woman, not hear what she says, but really start to hear her heart, knowing how what you say, knowing how what you do, the slightest little thing affects her, no matter how hard she may try to appear. Once you guys actually give your hearts to each other, you have no more defenses. It's just all open game. So you got to be really careful about how you treat her, what you say to her, the tone in which you use. And nobody has that anymore. People think that the louder I yell, the easier it is for me to get my point across. But all of that scarring that you're doing, you're gonna have to deal with that too. And I'm not saying we don't get upset, but if you know you can't talk, don't talk. Say, hey, baby, you know what? I'm gonna step out for a minute. Give me a minute to get my head right. But there is no situation, and I tell her this all the time, there is no situation that you're gonna go through that overwhelms or is more devastating than the love that you feel for that person. And what I mean is, do you love that person more than the issue that you may possibly have to deal with? And the answer is almost 100%. I love that person a lot more. So no matter what you're going through, do you love her past this? Can we get past this? And if the answer is yes, then get past it. And there's a way to do that. It's not all about you. You don't have to have the last word. You don't have to up your point across. Sometimes just listen. That's another thing a lot of men struggle with. They don't listen. I hear you, but I don't listen. And the listening part comes from here, not here.
Yeah.
Because I can hear you all day. But did I really hear you? Did I listen enough to know that based on what you say, I got to change some things in here? And then in doing that, that makes things so much easier if something comes up again. There's really nothing that I can't talk about my wife with. And then another big issue is trust. I don't need this no more, y'all. All right. I'm gonna go back and get that. Another thing is trust. Being able to trust your partner with every fiber of your being,
Yeah. Oof.
it takes so much weight off of you.
Uh,
Man, like, there are so many things, like, there is nothing that I keep from my wife, like nothing. But there was a time where I had to hide, well, I felt like I had to hide everything. 'Cause I wasn't living right, and what you thought you may want outside of the walls of your home, if you live right and be transparent, your wife will become everything that you need and then some. That's it. I know it was kind of long, but it was necessary.
for sure. Definitely. So, see, guys, this is the shenanigans that goes on in our household.
Right.
No, babe, you definitely hit on some really crucial points about how vulnerability for men is risky at times, but man, it's crucial. And it's such a shame because I don't think that so many men know how freeing it can be to actually be vulnerable. I mean, and women don't either. We have to be in a safe place, and that goes for both men and women. Most people would say, women need safety. Well, yeah, we do. We are the ones who seek the protection, right? But men also seek protection, maybe not physically, but emotionally. They need protection too. They need protection to know that their private things, their hard things, whatever they come and lay in your lap is sealed and it stays there. It goes nowhere else. And if you are not a woman who knows how to operate in discretion, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem, sis. And especially if you want to be a wife, you need to learn what discretion is immediately. You also need to learn what emotional safety look like for a man. How can you be that safe place for him? How can you allow someone to come and lay their heart in your lap and know that I'm strong enough emotionally to carry this, no matter what it may be? When my husband, as he mentioned, we went through some rocky stuff. And if I wasn't spiritually strong enough as I was in that place, because I wasn't emotionally strong when we went through the infidelity in our marriage. I wasn't emotionally strong, but I was spiritually strong. I was spiritually strong enough to know that I needed to go get on my face every day and pray for my house and pray for my husband and pray for our marriage. Because if not, then yeah, the devil was going to continue to just wreck it. And if I wasn't in that place where I was at least spiritually strong and I was trying to become emotionally strong and all of that things, but that was the healing that I had to do in order to get there and to be the woman that he now can say, I can tell her everything because not only am I spiritually strong, I'm emotionally strong, I'm mentally strong. I can take whatever it is, the truth that he come and put in my lap and understand that, look, I might have to process, but now I can come back and I can be vulnerable enough to say, you know what, babe, that was heavy, but we can get through it, and work it out however we may need to. I think that also for a lot of people, they don't understand what true love is or requires. Love in a relationship doesn't just look like making each other happy because you're not going to be happy all the time. Like we don't make each other happy. No, there's a joy that resonates here. Even in our unhappy moments, I know that in my house, I have peace. In my house, there is still joy, even when we're not talking to each other. Like, I know that at the end of the day, we gonna get over it and I can go and lay my head on my husband's chest and it's gonna be okay. You have to get to a place where you understand that love is not selfish. It really isn't. Love is the most selfless thing in the world that we can ever discover. And if you don't know how to be selfless, you won't ever really truly know how to love. Because again, love doesn't come from another person. You are love. You enter into that relationship as love. As we mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, love is the foundation from God and then yourself. And so, in order to give it to your person, to your partner, your spouse, whomever, you have to carry it. You have to enter into the place with it. So, if you don't have it already, there's no way he can give it to you or you can give it to him. You got to understand and know what that is for yourself and go get it for yourself. And then you can share that with someone else and it becomes beautiful because you both fully understand what it is. So, moving on, how do you think men really process heartbreak, especially when they don't feel safe expressing pain?
Truthfully, men don't process heartbreak.
Yeah.
They just find a replacement until that goes left, and the process never ends.
Wow. The kings of rebound, huh?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think one of the scariest things for me, to be brutally transparent, when in my mind she thinks the world of me, but not realizing she saw right through me. Um, so I tried to like fake it to make it. I had to trust God to prepare her to hear whatever I had to say. And I'm still learning that the more I trust her with my heart, the respect level she has for me is elevated each time. I don't think men have a clue how to process heartbreak because number one, you have to be accountable for the heartbreak. Number two, if the heartbreak was because of lack of communication and you don't communicate well, what is there to process? If you don't understand the why, then you're not going to be able to understand how to process the heartbreak.
Mm,
If you don't have the right tools to get through that, you're not going to process heartbreak at all.
yeah.
So 10 years later and 6 women later, you still trying to figure it out. At some point, there is no man on this earth that should not have a great relationship with God. Because in them times when you don't have a woman and it's just you, be creative enough to understand that take that time and talk to God.
Yeah.
Just like we rapping to you right now. Just highlight her. It doesn't have to be some kind of biblical index that you need to speak that language. He knows all of the languages. He created them. So just highlight your boy. He gets you right.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely good advice, babe. I think that for the pain, the processing, that's just like a human thing because we don't like pain. You used to tell me that all the time and he is so pain intolerant and I can take pain. Like, listen, don't too much phase me or hurt when it comes to pain for me except for emotional pain because that's just my sensitivity. I'm such an empath that the slightest emotional thing is so heavy on my heart. Physically, it's like whatever. But for men, they are physically strong and physically capable to do so much more than women. But man, the emotional part, women 100x. Okay. We are so much stronger in that area. And yes, but it's so prevalent because nowadays you hear it, even data show that women are so much stronger emotionally than men because we've had to be. You talked about the history of the United States. Back in those early days, women had to be the bedrock of so much. So we had to build up that emotional resilience. And I just think it carried through generations and generations. Black women are at risk of so many diseases compared to their counterparts because of how much stress we have to deal with. And I think that for Black men, you guys are the total opposite because you try to avoid at all costs any emotional pain or stress. And I think that that is for men in general.
I don't think it's a point of avoiding it. I think it's more so just not allowing it to phase you, like whatever.
Or
You don't
because
think
you
that
really don't
much
know how to deal
into
with
it
it.
because you don't realize how serious it is.
Yeah.
It's just below the bridge, you know? You don't really have, you don't, at that time, most men don't have the capacity to understand if you really sat and thinking about the emotional problem it's going to have on you, that you don't understand why you have psychological issues now
Uh-huh.
because you've never dealt with that. And your only answer was always, ain't no big deal.
Yeah,
It happens. Let's keep it moving. But all along, now you got mental health issues.
for sure.
And
Yeah.
you can't figure out, well, it's not a hereditary thing. Where does it come from? It comes from you not being able to handle the emotional trauma that all men go through and
Yeah.
not having an outlet and how to deal with it, how to move forward, and how to heal at this particular point in your life before you move on to the next thing. Because if it happens again or something worse happens, something else happens, and that just tax on and builds and builds. Next thing you know, you want some kind of popping pills to try to keep your head right.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. What's the biggest thing you wish people understood about the emotional world of men?
A lot of men have so much emotional scarring, which results in low self esteem. You kind of lead with that tough guy syndrome as a failsafe and not to expose yourself. So I think if we address men with this in mind, the conversation could actually start a gradual healing and allow us not to be so guarded. It's a real short answer, but it's a lot you can dive into from the response that I'm giving you. And that's pretty much what people really need to understand because that's the foundation of a good conversation and how to go from A to B to C to D and not from A to F and everything in between just kind of stays there and then never addressed.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's kind of, I want to follow up on that because this actually, your answer goes into the next section or the next question. And it actually talks about the healing part of that. Put our life out there. You dealt with this. Like earlier on in our marriage, you were so emotionally guarded, right? And in some ways, still are. That's still a becoming and healing part of you. And I think that so many men can learn when they see that it's okay to break those emotional chains that you've been taught to carry or you've been taught to guard yourself with and actually allow emotion. My husband will cry at the drop of a dime, okay? Like you just saw, he just did. But this is the reality of who he is as a man. And it wasn't always like this. Like, I didn't always get to see him cry at a whim. It took time because those emotional barriers and walls that he had up for so long from childhood, as you just heard him say, had to slowly come down and be broken brick by brick as he learned that it's safe to actually show emotion. And I think for most men, that is so true, but they just don't know how to start breaking those bricks or removing those barriers. So what does healing look like or what is your process of healing have been looking like?
all right, before we get to that, don't get it twisted, fellas. I might cry for my wife, but I'll throw these hands, all right? Yeah.
No, what does your healing look like? Your emotional healing process. What has it been?
I think I'm still unpacking, babe. From a very young age, nobody even thought about a healthy relationship. You were just happy to be in one. It's not until you go through so much and finally sit yourself down or get sat down and try to really figure out, is this worth fighting for? It's something that my wife says to me on occasion. And sometimes I really have to think about it. Is it worth fighting for? Or is it easier to just walk away and start over again? When you've invested so much, whether good, bad, or indifferent, with your partner, your wife, whomever that may be, it's worth fighting for. You thought enough to spend that much time with this person. Well, now you're becoming who you should have been a long time ago. And it's going to take just as much time to become that new person as it was from the person that you've already been most of your life. So that's a process. It don't happen overnight. But you still have to be open-minded enough to say, you know what? It's worth it.
Mhm.
It's more than worth it. So I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to make sure that you're happy, we're happy, and continue to trust God first. My emotional part is an ongoing process. Had so many things that I've had to deal with from the time that I was in the military and dealing with that racism in there, from the time that my sister died in my arms, from the time that my mom died in my arms, from the time that I never really dealt with my father too much, but when he passed, I took it really hard and couldn't figure out, why. And when I really sat myself down and thought about it, I'm like, what am I really getting worked up for? He didn't prepare me for life. He was never the father that I wanted to be, but in my mind, he was. So I had to really address that within myself. I'm like, it was almost like night and day. It was an epiphany. Like it just a light bulb came on one day. I said to my wife, I'm like, you know what, man? I was beating myself up so much about my pops not being here, but he had a choice when he was here. And that's a big part of what made me the man and the dad that I am and why I go hard when it comes to my kids. I go hard when I come to wifey. Like, ain't nobody in my circle gonna have to really want for a whole lot because I'm gonna make sure they good. And that's kind of who I am as a person now. And I haven't been able to really unpack that in a way that I wasn't looking for something in return. It was just because I love you. And that's how it should be, you know? If I know what makes your day, you really don't have to ask for much. I'm gonna make sure you're good. So that's kind of how I deal with the emotional part, and I take it case by case. There's always going to be some things that you may not evolve from all the way because there may still be some things that you should have to learn in order to kind of to process that and work through that.
Yeah.
Um, but in the meantime, you have to process it. You can't just let it stay. And because it's not prevalent at the time or it's not the topic of discussion, it has to be taken care of because it will eat and eat and eat away and eat away and eat away. And as I said before, you don't want to snap at your wife or your significant other for something that's so minuscule because of what you're going through. But yet the thing that she asks you is, what you want on your sandwich? And you hollering at her. Sometimes it's that petty and it's
Yeah.
not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I discovered about healing? I heard somebody say this. I was watching a video the other day, and they said that healing typically isn't for yourself because there is triggers that you will always live with and deal with. And I think that's kind of what you just pointed out, right? Healing is an everlasting journey. As long as we are on this earth, we will always be healing from something because again, God, we are in transition and we are transformed by the renewing of our mind through God's truth and his word. And even as we are transforming, we're transitioning from glory to glory, which means that we are ever evolving and changing. And healing is also a part of that. The video stated that we heal not for ourselves or to get rid of our triggers, but we heal so that we aren't one bleeding on other people, but we also heal for the generations behind us that they don't have to heal from the same wounds that we're carrying or passing on to them. So healing isn't really, we do healing for us, but other people benefit from it. And so just like in our relationship, the healing that I had to do, you and Milan benefit from it. Our family benefit from it. The people in my life benefit from it. And the same for you. When men heal, your significant other, your children, your lineage, it benefits from it. So if we can actually get men to understand that, yes, the process is strenuous. Healing is no joke. It hurts, right? That pain that men don't like to deal with and confront. But your lineage, the legacy that you leave here benefits from the healing that you do while you're on this earth. And I think that if men could just understand that, how much better would family dynamics be?
Bro, I'm telling you, my wife cook now. We healing. All right.
Sick of you. What does healthy, healed love look like for a man who's unlearning these stigmas?
Mm, I think a healthy love and trusting yourself enough to be vulnerable. Start with that.
Yeah.
Communicating with your partner and being brutally honest and transparent. the amount of stress that's relieved by this is life extending. I also think that a good way to stay in practice healthy behaviors, you can seek couples counseling, find someone that you can confide in that love God, and just have open dialogue in your relationship. Hey, Brad, you anything you need to rap about today? Anything on your mind? Anything on your heart? People don't do that. It's kind of, I had a rough day today at work, and all you want to talk about is work. I don't want to talk about work. I'll hear what you had to say, but as soon as you're done, if it's something on my heart that's going to help us, let's talk about that. My wife used to always say, to me, yeah, we talk, but we don't talk. I'm like, you hear what I said? We talk, but she meant I wouldn't talk from here. I speak with my mouth, but a lot of times I was afraid to really, really let her in. I didn't want to be vulnerable. I did everything in my power not to be. And the power of God, good God Almighty. I fought and I fought and I fought. And I'm like, man, I got tired of getting knocked down, bro. So I had to open up and then we talk. You see, I'm on this show. She ain't paying me, but I'm here. So
By the grace of God.
but it's just really important that you can actually tell when you start to heal from certain stigmas that you had to deal with growing up. Because a conversation that she and I can have now is so easy on your heart and it's easy to talk about and it's not yelling, it's a conversation, it really is. We laugh and we joke, even though the conversation might be heavy, we can still laugh about it because the end of that conversation, she ain't going nowhere. Neither am I, So it goes back to, is your relationship stronger? Does it mean more to you than whatever you have to discuss or deal with? And
Yeah.
your relationship always wins. Always.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have evolved to that place because the man, like talking before, was nothing but a yelling match, okay? Nothing but an argument. But I think that, we literally have sometimes I'm just like, don't even want, I can just sit and we can just talk all day. He can be at his desk working and I'll just come and sit and we'll just start chatting. And next thing you know, like we've been talking for like 30 minutes or something. But when you get to a place in your relationship, and especially for married folks, I definitely want to talk to the married folks right now because this is so important for us because we are supposed to be coming. How can you become one with someone if you don't know their heart? If they don't share it with you, if you don't communicate it, if you guys aren't open enough to literally lay yourself down on the line and expose every part of you, there is no way you can become one as the Bible declares that a married couple should becoming one.
I think that most men don't really understand what that means. It said the two become one.
Yeah.
And for me, in my definition of that, it means that no matter what I go through, we go through it. No matter what's going on may affect me, affects you.
Yeah.
So, in essence, it's saying everything that I address or happens or has an effect on me affects my family. So, I have to be open enough to share whatever that may be, and vice versa. So, the two becoming one, meaning that it's always going to be an opening and an invitation to talk about whatever, whenever, doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think that that's the reason why God say that the man should be the spiritual head of the household, right? Because if you are the spiritual head of the household, which means that we can only become one through his spirit that lives within the both of us. The Holy Spirit is what binds us and makes us that one. And so if we don't communicate enough and I can't really identify your spirit, I don't really know, how you're moving it or what the true foundation of your heart is because we don't communicate or even you're communicating again with what you said, a facade, or you're just talking just to talk.
And that's just saying, let go and let God.
Yeah,
It's that simple. Let
absolutely.
go and let God. But another issue is most men don't know how to be leaders in their relationship. And most women take the forefront. I can't get down with that. Like, I may have leadership abilities, but how's my wife going to follow me if my leadership ability is based on what I say and what I do, as opposed to what the word of God says? And we've had our challenges with that because I've always had leadership qualities, but having leadership qualities don't necessarily mean it's going to work for the both of you. Having leadership qualities don't mean that you're being led by whom you're supposed to be led by. So you may have what it takes to get there, but you have to get there. And you're only going to get there, and she's only going to follow you if you're following him. And so many men have the misconception of I'm the man in this relationship. Are you really? And what does that look like for you being a man in the relationship? I'm here to this. I make the decisions. Your whole energy says how you make decisions. So how's she gonna follow that? When you start making selfless contributions and selfless acts of love for your family, then there is no decision that you should make, and you should be last in that decision. My wife gonna be good, my family gonna be good, right? And also have a conversation about it. You may be here, but y'all still gotta talk about it. Her opinion still matters. Not just is what I say and that's what it is. She's your wife, not your kid. Don't get that bent. I'm trying to tell you, it's gonna be a long time before you get up off that couch
Don't
or
he know?
or sleeping at your boy's house because she ain't having it, man. If you got a good woman, she better not put up with that nonsense. I'm just thankful that let me tell y'all something. You know how shy my wife used to be? This would not be a thing, I promise you. She was quiet, real humble, everything to herself. Now we can't keep the microphone out of face. I appreciate it, though. I thank you, God, because she was so, so quiet. She was an introvert times 20. I've never been an introvert.
It's purpose. Purpose will drag you out of your shell. You can't hide from God's purpose.
So, yeah, I take that and I receive that.
No, but everything he just said, literally, because though men are, like you said, guys, you are the head. But if you aren't following God, the Bible tells you that you don't follow your husband leadership. You follow God directly. And for so many women that husbands aren't taking the lead in that manner, they have to lead outside of his authority because he isn't following the one that he should be. And some women are actually tired of having to take the lead in relationships. And, for us, that was true for a while too, because my husband can tell you that now because I had to tell him that several times. Like, listen, sir, you're not following my father, so I'm not following you. No, but you have to really, if you are a woman of God, you have to maintain that, and that should be a non-negotiable. Because if the man that is supposed to lead you, that's supposed to guide you to the Father, isn't following the Father for himself, have a relationship with the Father for himself, how can he ever guide you and your offspring to the Father as a family unit? So that is definitely important, and it's important for the healing of the relationship and for the family dynamic. And so, closing in today's episode, I want to ask you one final question. If you could speak directly to men who feel unseen, emotionally unsupported, or afraid to love fully, what would you say to them?
First thing is, bro, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. That's going to take you a lot further than you can ever imagine. For a man to be vulnerable is one of the most attractive things to a woman. I promise you, right? Read the tea leaves, bro. I'm gonna say that again. For a man to be vulnerable is one of the most attractive things to a woman. All right. Trust that a woman can handle more than we give them credit for. And lastly, trust God to lead you and open your hearts to him. He'll help you open it. He'll help you open your heart to the woman of your choosing. Only one. Pretty much that's my answer.
Absolutely. That was perfect. That I think, just to add to that, emotional healing is also something that's so attractive to women. When you have a man that is emotionally healed or healing, as my no, but emotional healing and spiritual healing, if that is a thing that needs to happen, or on his spiritual journey, and mentally healing, or, recovering mentally, because men go through a lot, ladies. And what we take for granted so often is that our men, especially Black men, or for minorities as a whole, our men go through a lot. They have to fight with the throes of society outside of the home. And then, inside of the home, when we aren't right, they also have to fight with the throes of our unsupport, or our, not being kind, or just not being what they need. And so I think that we also need to take heed that our healing is important as well to the family dynamic and the health and the recovery of the family dynamics. It's a team effort, and it is so important to the generations that will come and that are coming behind us, to leave a mark and a legacy of wholeness, of love, and of, just true well-being. I think that's the best thing that we can leave them. And so, closing in today's episode, I just want to leave you with this. Men are not emotionally disconnected. Many of them were simply never given permission to feel out loud. This conversation isn't about calling men out. It's about calling them in, because love doesn't grow where silence lives. If this episode opened your heart or your mind, share it with someone who needs to hear it, especially the man or the men who were never taught that their feelings matter too, because they do. And we need to show up for our men because they need us more than ever. And women, we need to show up for us as well, but we need to show up for each other in a healed, whole, and healthy manner. So let's get this ball rolling. We all need to do it together.
Keep your guards up and send my check to my agent.
In the meantime, continue to be the love that the world needs, and I will see you guys in the next episode.
Peace.